Hi, I'm Charlie Carter, Executive Director for Student Support Services in the Thompson School District. With me is Jen Von Lintel, counselor at BF Kitchen Elementary School, where she has been running a therapy dog program for over a decade. Jen, can you tell us how you started in animal-assisted interventions?
I actually knew nothing about therapy dogs or animal-assisted interventions until it was back around 2010 when I received an email from HABIC, the Human Animal Bond in Colorado, out of Colorado State University, and they were doing a research study. They wanted to take a look at students that were working with therapy dog teams and students that were working with their graduate students in their social work. And they were looking specifically for students that were having behavior referrals or problems with showing empathy towards others. And I immediately said, we'd love to be a part of that. And they immediately wrote back and said, but we have no therapy dogs left. So later that day I was thinking, I have identical twins at my school that I've been working with for quite a while. Wouldn't it be interesting to see if one was placed with a therapy dog team and one was placed with one of their grad students and see if there were some differences between that? When I shared that with CSU, they were very excited, found a team, and I started learning about animal-assisted interventions. And the interesting thing about animal-assisted interventions is it's a broad scope of different ways that animals can help students in an education setting. We have things like animal-assisted education. So that's more of helping with reading skills or math skills. We have our animal-assisted therapy. So we have some occupational therapists or speech-language pathologists that are working with students specifically on goals for that student. We also have animal-assisted activities. So if we're trying to increase participation in maybe a group that's held after school, we can invite a team in to help develop that and increase the number of students there. Lastly, we have animal-assisted crisis response. So if there is a crisis in a school, we have very specialized teams that can come in and do that. With CSU and HABIC, this was really looking at animal-assisted therapy. So they were very selective on the students that they were working with, and were doing a lot of measurement of goals. I was just awestruck at the quick changes that I was seeing in one of my students that was working with the therapy dog. Within the second session, the student who hadn't really displayed any signs of empathy wanted to make a card for somebody else. And we were seeing significant decreases in office referrals, while our other student was still not showing very much change at all. So that's what made me say, I need to learn more about why this is working for this particular case.
So, in addition to positive changes in empathy and a decrease in office referrals, what other positive changes have you seen?
Well, after working with HABIC, I decided I need to find my own dog to work with. And I got very fortunate in meeting Copper, who worked with me for a decade at BF Kitchen. He's now in retirement. He's sleeping on the back porch, enjoying his retired life. But during that time, I developed a pre and post data collection tool because I really wanted to be able to measure, am I seeing the same changes that I saw with HABIC, and across what type of goals am I seeing these changes? So we would collect this tool from teachers and from parents or guardians, be able to select the goals that we're working on, and then measure those changes over that 6 to 8 week period. Interestingly, we'd maybe identify 2 or 3 goals, but we'd be seeing these changes in other areas. And I would have responses from teachers coming back saying, oh my goodness, this student never came on Mondays, but for the last 8 Mondays, they've been in class. So that made me think, oh, I need to pull attendance data in. And since we've been doing that, we've been seeing some amazing changes to attendance without even really focusing on that as a goal. We also do a lot of regulation work. So students work on skills with emotional regulation or physical regulation. will plan a dysregulation event, and then they'll use their tools with Copper, because he'll become dysregulated, and then I'll cue him, hey, Copper, it's time to get regulated again, and the students will use their tools and help both Copper and themselves get regulated. We're seeing some amazing work with depression and anxiety. Hearts and Horses did an amazing study last year with the equine animal-assisted therapy. And we're also seeing tools that we can use to help students with those. So there's really a broad spectrum of different ways and different changes that we're seeing, positive changes for our students.
Awesome. So it sounds like AAI has had an impact on different types of students. Can you tell us why this works when maybe other interventions don't?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. And when I started looking at this particular modality, we didn't really know. It wasn't until probably around 2012, 2013, we started seeing a lot of research with soldiers who were returning from places like Afghanistan with diagnoses of post-traumatic stress disorder. And there was a lot of funding that was put into truly trying to help those individuals. And a lot of that funding was starting to go into animal-assisted therapy. And so we were seeing changes in brain chemistry because we had all that funding behind them. Two of the big things that we've seen is changes in oxytocin. So that's our sense of belonging, our sense of being connected to others, increases dramatically even after just a 7-minute interaction, positive interaction with an animal. We also see changes in cortisol, so that stress hormone. And we'll see those changes, that stress hormone decrease, both in the people and the animals that are part of that intervention. It's kind of interesting coming out of COVID, we've seen that oxytocin really stay strong across the research studies, but that cortisol level isn't dropping as significantly as it did pre-COVID. So there's always more questions with this research, but we're seeing brain chemistry is changing with these positive interactions.
Wow. Well, thank you very much for joining me today and sharing about your work. And stay tuned, because we'll be hearing more about animal-assisted intervention in the Thompson School District.